Heartwarming transformation revealed. Billionaire's incredible response to mother-ripping maids. In the vibrant suburbs of Atlanta, Emma fought tirelessly. A single mother in her early 30s, she held down multiple jobs to carve out a life for her daughter, Lily. Days stretched long and difficult. Some mornings started at the laundromat, while others ended with her serving food at a local diner. Emma wore exhaustion like a badge, but never let it show. Her heart held tight to dreams for Lily, who deserved every opportunity. But one evening, after a particularly grueling week filled with demanding customers and sleepless nights spent juggling 2 more shifts, something snapped. Emma found herself in a domestic whirlwind, juggling laundry and homework while Maria, the diligent maid, offered help. Frustration bubbled over, and in a moment of weakness, Emma lashed out. "I don't need your help." It was her voice, but distortions of pain and stress twisted the words into something painful. Maria, taken aback, faltered. That was Emma's breaking point, and soon, so many others would notice. Across town, Richard Evans, a billionaire with roots that were anything but silver-spooned, caught wind of the incident. He was disheartened when whispers swirled around the community, painting Emma as an antagonist. The judgment felt wrong to him, a stark contrast to his formative years in a less fortunate household. It made him uneasy, forcing him to confront his privilege. It was easy to blend in with the rich and dismiss the complexities of daily struggles. Inspired by the moment, he decided to create a community initiative aimed at supporting struggling families, hoping to change perceptions. And somehow, Emma, the very person the town turned against, became a crucial part of his vision. As they collaborated, Richard witnessed Emma's fierce resilience. Beneath her exhaustion, a deep well of empathy surged, especially towards Maria. Their bond blossomed, and the surrounding community began to stir with curiosity, their subtle judgments starting to fade. Yet a dark cloud hung over the neighborhood. The gossip stung, and scars scratched deep. The upcoming community gathering to celebrate Richard's project promised a chance for healing, but also teased tensions. With bated breath, the crowd awaited to spill feelings long held, especially directed at Emma. At the event, a brusque voice rose from the crowd, questioning Emma's worth in the presence of others. Tension crackled in the air. Richard took a stand. True value isn't tied to money, he declared, emotions spilling from his heart, but in character and love. The crowd leaned closer, the atmosphere electric. Emma stood, caught between shame and pride. A single moment could tip the scale. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Emma's heart thudded, uncertainty creeping in. Would this be her moment of redemption, or would she be branded forever as a scapegoat? The crowd held its breath, the tension palpable. Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, but within the hearts present, a flicker of hope lit up the darkness. Emma's story was far from over. It hung in the balance, just waiting for a push towards a future that could either unite or divide them all. Emma's voice trembled as she finally stepped forward, the weight of the crowd's gaze pressing down upon her. "I am sorry," she began, her voice struggling to break through the murmur of disbelief around her. "I've been scared, struggling to keep everything together for my daughter. But that's no excuse for how I treated Maria." The sincerity in her words broke through the tension. The crowd shifted uneasily. Whispers rippled like a wave, some unsure, others skeptical. But Richard stood firm behind her, his presence a silent vow of support. He understood that her pain wasn't in isolation. It was part of a bigger picture woven into the fabric of their community. A woman from the back, older and hardened by life's trials, stepped forward. "You think just because you have money you get to act above us?" Her voice, filled with years of injustices, echoed through the air. "You're just like the rest of us, flawed." Emma swallowed hard, nodding. "You're right. I made a choice that night that showed my worst self. I will own it." Richard took a step closer. "What we need to remember is that we're all human. We all hurt, and we all need each other." His passion rippled through the crowd like a warm blanket. Slowly, some faces softened, and the hard lines of judgment faded. Maria appeared at the edge of the crowd. With trembling hands clasped together, she joined Emma on the stage. "I forgive you," she said, her voice a beacon of grace. "No one is perfect. We all deserve a second chance." A heartwarming murmur swept through the audience. Emma's heart swelled as she looked at Maria, understanding the depth of their shared experience. In an instant, Emma felt tears prick her eyes, a mixture of pain and gratitude welling within her. The community wasn't just here to confront their struggles. They were also there to uplift one another. Lily, who had been watching wide-eyed from the front of the crowd, stepped forward, her small frame determined. "Mommy, it's okay," she called. "You showed everyone that we can fix things together." The innocence in her daughter's words cut through the heaviness in the air. A few in the crowd sniffled, and Emma felt the shift, hearts beginning to open instead of close. Richard took a deep breath. "Let us work on understanding and grow beyond this moment." The atmosphere began to crack with possibility. Plans for future community projects blossomed. The idea of mentorship programs, shared resources, and healing circles started to take life. A spirit of solidarity emerged, clearing the shadows of earlier judgments. But just as possibilities sparkled in the air, a new voice pierced through the positive atmosphere, sharp and accusatory. "What makes you think she deserves forgiveness? A simple sorry isn't enough." All heads turned, challenging eyes meeting a neighbor's simmering anger. The room tightened with apprehension, the fragile hope teetering. Emma's stomach twisted. Could this be the moment that unraveled everything they had just built? As silence descended and every heartbeat echoed in that shared space, Emma's resolve tightened. She realized this was her chance not just for redemption, but to forge a path toward healing and change within the community. "Let us talk," she said, her voice finding steadiness, "because this isn't just about me. We need to have this conversation and work through our anger together." The crowd shifted, some faces apprehensive and others curious, opening their hearts to an unexpected dialogue. Emma stood tall, holding the precious light of hope for all, and as the sun dipped completely beneath the horizon, the true conversation was just beginning. What would unfold when buried truths finally saw the light? The atmosphere hung thick with unresolved feelings, setting the stage for an even deeper reckoning. Emma took a deep breath, her heart thudding louder than the whispers surrounding her. The energy in the air felt electric, like a storm brewing just beyond the horizon. She glanced at Richard, who nodded encouragingly, his face a mixture of concern and hope. The woman who had called out still stood at the edge of the crowd, her arms crossed defiantly. Emma could feel the weight of her gaze, but instead of backing down, she focused on the people in front of her, neighbors, friends, and familiar faces. Each one lived within the same tangled web of human experience. "I can't change the past," Emma began, her voice rising to meet the challenge. "But I want to understand your pain. My decision affected others, and I want to hear how." The words felt like stepping stones, carefully crafted to build a bridge between them. The murmurs of discontent began to fade as she spoke. Some faces softened, though others still held skepticism. "Look, we all have burdens to bear," she continued. "What I did was wrong, and I'm so sorry for how I made Maria feel. But I can also learn. We can all learn." A young man from the side stepped forward. "You talk about learning, but how can we trust you? You're set apart by your wealth. We don't live in the same world." His voice was steady, yet tinged with a vulnerability that resonated. It laid bare the heart of their grievance. Emma felt a knot of anger and guilt twist in her gut. "You're right," she said, her voice unwavering. "I didn't grow up like many of you. I had a privileged life. But that doesn't excuse my ignorance. If you give me the chance, I want to understand how that privilege weighs on you. I want to be part of this community." Richard stepped in, his tone calm yet firm. "It's not just words, though. It's actions that matter. Let us turn these feelings into something productive. What can we do to rebuild trust, to lift each other up?" His question hung in the air, appealing for unity and resolution. Slowly, more voices began to join the conversation. An older man spoke up about his struggles, how hard it was to make ends meet each month. A woman shared her story of loss, describing the grueling weight of loss and exclusion that followed her. Each vulnerability was like a thread pulling them together. Emma felt a wave of understanding wash over her. It wasn't just about her mistakes. It was about unraveling the knots of grief and anger they all carried. She could see the shared humanity glimmering between them. Then, the man who had questioned her earlier raised his voice again. "What if you really do mean it? What if you want to help?" His tone softened, as if the hardness cracked open a little. "Then show us. Show us that you're not just words. Show us you're here to change." Emma nodded, a spark igniting within her. "Let us start today. What if we start a community garden? It could be a place where we all come together, share resources, share food. A place where we can then hash out ideas, brainstorm ways to help those in need in our neighborhood. What do you think?" There was a pause as her proposal settled in. Emma held her breath, watching faces shifting from skepticism to contemplation. A hand shot up from the back. "Maria." "I'm in," she said, her voice steady. "I'd love to be a part of that." One by one, nods of agreement began to ripple through the crowd. Hope began weaving through the tensions, stitching together fresh purpose. Yet, just as the warmth of newfound initiative began to bolster spirits, another voice rose from the back. "But what will happen when the next crisis hits?" As uncertainty swirled in the air, Emma realized they were standing on the edge of a new journey, where both struggle and resilience would coexist. The question lingered, heavy with potential. Could they truly rebuild what had been broken? Emma felt a new resolve stir within her, but the path ahead was still shrouded in shadows. The conversation had started, but revealing their truths was just the beginning. What else lay beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered? Emma stood in that gathering, her heart racing with hope and uncertainty. The faces around her reflected a mix of emotion. Some were still guarded, others were beginning to open up. Richard's presence beside her felt like an anchor. Together, they were diving into uncharted waters. "Let us face it," the man who had questioned her said, his tone even more earnest this time. "Building a garden is nice, but it's not going to fix the real issues we're facing. We need jobs, we need stability. How can you help with that?" His words rang out, hitting Emma with a heaviness that settled deep in her chest. Could she really help? With a community that felt so far removed from her own experience? But just as the weight began to drag her down, another voice joined in. "I think a garden is a great start," Maria chimed in again, her enthusiasm painting her words bright. "It can bring people together, but we can also start some workshops on skills. Maybe we can teach each other how to cook, how to manage finances, how to apply for jobs." The idea sparked something in the crowd. Emma could see heads nodding, a collective energy buzzing through the air. If they could help each other this way, it could create a ripple effect. "Yes," Emma exclaimed, feeling the fire swell in her heart. "Skills sharing could make us stronger. Each voice brings value. We can all learn." A woman from the back stepped forward, her hair pulled tight in a bun. "You don't understand," she said, her brow furrowed. "People here are beaten down by a system that doesn't care. A garden doesn't change the fact that bills pile up and that our children need opportunities to thrive." "Yes, and our lives shouldn't just be about survival," another voice echoed. Emma's stomach twisted with the reality of their struggle. Their pain was palpable, and it reminded her of her own complacency. She thought of her own privileges, of how many doors had opened with ease. "I know I can't change the world overnight, but I can commit to listening and working alongside you," she said, the sincerity burning in her chest. "Let us make this a real partnership." The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm, golden hue over the crowd. With it came a moment of silence, as if the weight of their shared experience filled the air like a lingering melody. In the stillness, Emma could sense a shift. A small boy tugged on his mother's sleeve, pointing to the fading sunlight and the beauty around them. "Can we have a party in the garden too?" he asked innocently. His eyes sparkled with a mix of excitement and curiosity. Laughter bubbled up among the adults, thawing some of the hard edges. "A harvest party," someone shouted, and another added, "Let us bring recipes to share." As ideas flowed, Emma watched relief wash over familiar faces. The conversation began to swirl around possibilities: game nights, cooking classes, art lessons. A community emerged not from her wealth but from mutual support, shared strengths, and the desire to rebuild together. Yet, in Emma's heart, the earlier question loomed large, waiting for answers that could only come with time. What would happen when the next crisis hit? Would their bond hold? As excitement filled the air, Emma felt the tingle of hope threading through their plans. All around her, laughter mixed with newfound determination. But as the sun finally dipped below the horizon, a shadow crept back into her mind. Could they truly sustain this growth? Or would the challenges of life pull them apart again before they were ready? Just as she was lost in thought, a whisper cut through the air, sending chills down her spine. What if it wasn't just about gardening? Emma's heart raced. What was coming next? The whisper echoed in Emma's mind, the weight of it heavy and intriguing. She turned slightly, scanning the gathering for the source, but found only eager faces, filled with anticipation about plans for a community garden and shared gatherings. Was it a metaphor she needed to grasp, or a warning that pointed towards a larger truth they had yet to confront? The laughter and chatter began to ebb, settling into a comfortable blend of excitement and realization. Maria nudged Emma with a knowing smile. You've already sparked hope, you know? It one tea in with a garden. We need to follow through. Emma nodded, feeling the threads of connection weaving tighter among the crowd. Yet, a part of her questioned what lay beyond the surface, beyond community dinners and vegetable patches. She needed to understand the deeper issues weighing on the community's shoulders. What fears and struggles were hidden beneath the smiles? Before she could voice her concerns, Richard spoke up, his baritone cutting through the evening air. Emma, I think it's time to talk about the real work ahead of us. What will we do next week? We can't let this energy fizzle out. His words ignited a fresh wave of discussion. People began offering ideas, some practical, others wild and unfiltered. But amid the flurry of suggestions, Emma hung back for a moment, her gaze sweeping over the crowd. She could see the flickers of uncertainty hidden behind the enthusiasm. A man with salt and pepper hair, who had been quiet until now, cleared his throat. I'm worried this will just end up like everything else. A moment of hope crushed by reality. His voice was low, yet it shook with conviction. What happens when the bills come due? When someone loses a job? There's truth in what he says, someone murmured, nodding slowly. We can't ignore the pressures we face every day. A party or a garden one tea put food on the table next month. Emma felt her heart sink, the joy from moments ago dissipating. I know, she began, trying to find the right words, that we can't solve every problem overnight. But what if we start by addressing one thing at a time, something we can work together on? The crowd fell silent again, contemplating this new angle of conversation. Emma felt a pulse of energy. Could this seed of thought grow into action? What if we created a committee? One that focuses on the most pressing issues and develops a plan? It could be about job training, about connecting people with resources. We could research grants or even community funding options. Maria chimed in, we can gather stories. Show people what's at stake. If we send a message together, we can catch attention. There's power in numbers, right? A few people exchanged glances, the flicker of hope rekindling. Emma could see the wheels turning in some minds, embers of determination reigniting. But then she caught sight of the woman with the tight bun again. And what do we do when those funds fall short? Or when someone gets sick? How do we hold each other up in those moments? Emma's heart ached. She wanted so desperately to provide answers, to shield them from the darkness that hung in the air like those ominous clouds at dusk. We can be there for one another, she finally said. Support doesn't mean always fixing. It means sharing the burden. It means creating a safety net. A murmur of agreement spread through the crowd. Bit by bit, they began embracing the idea that their community could be a source of strength, not just a place to escape hardship, but a unit built on empathy and shared struggle. Just as spirits began to lift once again, a sharp crack of thunder rumbled in the distance, and rain began to fall, quickly transforming the air from warmth to coolness. Groans of dismay mingled with exhilaration. But Emma noticed something else, a child's laugh cutting through the noise, as they ran to catch raindrops. The sight made her smile. Maybe growth didn't just come in sunshine. Sometimes it thrived in the storm. Shall we retreat and keep brainstorming indoors? Richard suggested, a playful grin on his face. Or do we embrace this while it lasts? The crowd erupted in laughter, their fears swept aside for the moment. Emma found herself swept up in their joy, but beneath it all, the important questions still loomed large. As they turned towards the community center to continue their meeting, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that the challenges ahead wouldn't be easy. What hidden secrets would this storm bring to light? Could she help hold everyone together when the winds really started to blow? And as the rain poured, a thought crept into her mind, one that felt both thrilling and nerve-wracking. Maybe the next step would be uncovering deeper truths about themselves and the struggles of their neighborhood. But what would that reveal? The community center buzzed as Emma and the others stepped inside, their laughter mingling with the soft patter of rain against the roof. The familiar scent of old wood and fresh paint filled the air, almost comforting in its simplicity. Richard, ever the lively spirit, clapped his hands to gather attention. All right, folks, let us harness this energy. We have one night of brainstorming ahead of us. Who's ready to dig deeper? Emma felt a swell of determination in her chest. It was a perfect moment to leap from ideas to action, to keep the momentum alive. Yet, as laughter faded and chairs scraped against the floor, she sensed the lingering anxiety in the air. They could come together, but would they sustain it? What if we start by sharing our stories? Emma suggested, her voice steady. Maybe each of us can talk about a time when we faced hardship or felt alone. It could bring us closer together. The room hesitated before the atmosphere shifted, a mix of uncertainty and cautious acceptance washing over them. Maria leaned forward, eyebrows raised. I think it's a great idea. Stories hold power. One by one, they opened up. A woman spoke of losing her job when the factory shut down, revealing the trembling vulnerability beneath her tough exterior. Another shared how her child's medical bills had spiraled into unmanageable debt, forcing her to choose between necessities. As they talked, Emma saw tears glimmer in the crowd, the silent struggles laid bare like raw wounds. Each story peeled back layers, creating an emotional tapestry of shared experience. The intensity mingled with empathy, and Emma's heart began to race. This isn't just a community garden, is it? Someone said quietly. It's about planting seeds of hope and keeping each other rooted when times get tough. Yes, Emma practically shouted, her heart swelling. We're not just building a garden, we're fostering a place of resilience. If we're open about these struggles, we become stronger together. But just as enthusiasm seemed to flourish, the woman with the tight bun spoke again, her face etched with worry. And what about the people who can't voice their stories? What if some are hiding even worse suffering behind closed doors? Emma felt a chill. The room fell silent, her mind racing. How could they create that safety net for everyone, especially those who felt invisible? That's why we need to stay connected, she said cautiously, weighing her words. We need to encourage each other to share not just the easy things, but the hard parts too. We can create places for discussion, like support groups or check-ins where everyone knows they're not alone. Nods spread through the group, a spark of understanding igniting within them. Suddenly, a clap of thunder boomed outside, shaking the building. Emma's heart jumped. It was as if nature itself was reminding them of their shared challenges. Let us use this storm as inspiration, Richard declared, a vibrant grin spreading across his face. Let us reflect the energy of the rain. We can build something beautiful even in tumult. With renewed vigor, ideas began to flow again, organizing watch parties for community issues, creating care packages, and developing workshops to empower those who felt lost. Emma stood back, taking in the scene. Laughter mingled with purpose. They were channeling their fears into action. One voice emerged louder than the rest. It was the man who had spoken about uncertainty earlier. We just have to stay honest, he said. No matter how messy it gets, we commit to truth-telling. The realization hit her like a bolt of lightning. What if their honesty unlocked even deeper fears, hidden truths that could change their lives forever? She felt a new rush, a sense of urgency building inside her. As they continued to share and plan, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that the real challenge was only just beginning. What would they find when they started digging deep? What skeletons might tumble out, and could they hold each other up when it got too heavy? As the rain continued to pour, one thought lingered in her mind. Would they be ready for whatever happened next? Emma looked at her friends, their faces lit not just by the flickering overhead lights, but by a newfound resolve. And before she knew it, she was asking, what secrets will the storm bring to light? As Emma's voice hung in the air, the tension in the room shifted. Everyone exchanged glances, uncertainty highlighted in the furrows of their brows. The storm outside raged louder, echoing their feelings of apprehension. But within Emma, A flicker of hope ignited. Let us not shy away from the uncomfortable, she urged, her heart pounding. We're in this together. It's time to confront our fears head-on. Richard nodded, clearly stoked by her energy. Who's willing to dive first? His eyes scanned the gathered crowd, seeking a brave soul. A palpable silence stretched, thick like the raindrops slamming against the windows. Then, a hand shot up. It was Maria. I'll go, she said, her voice small but firm. There's something I've been carrying, something I thought I would never share. As everyone leaned in closer, the room felt heavier with expectation. Maria took a deep breath, her fingers fidgeting nervously. My brother, he struggles with addiction. He has been missing for weeks now, and I don't know if he is safe. I've tried everything, contacted friends, even the police. It feels like I'm shouting into an empty void. A collective gasp swept across the group. The raw honesty in her words hit hard. Emma could feel the weight of Maria's despair like an anchor pulling them all down. But something else stirred within her, a spark of solidarity. You're not alone, Maria, Emma said gently, her voice barely above a whisper. We'll help you find him. You don't have to bear this alone. Tears brimmed in Maria's eyes, but a faint smile managed to break through. Encouragement rippled through the room, inspiring others to open up. They began to share their own burdens, weaving their vulnerabilities into the fabric of the evening. One man spoke about his struggles with depression. Another woman revealed her battle with illness that left her feeling isolated. Each story was a fragile thread that tied them closer. Emma could see the transformation happening, one that broke barriers and created a blanket of comfort. Suddenly, the lights flickered, causing a stir of anxious laughter. It's just the storm, Richard exclaimed, raising his arms as if he could embrace the chaos outside. Let us not let a little flicker stop our light. The laughter continued, lifting spirits. Emma couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement. They were not only supporters, they were now a family united in strength. The room filled with warmth, something she'd hoped would happen but wasn't certain could be achieved. But then, the mood shifted again. The tight-bun woman spoke once more, her brave face wavering. What about those we haven't heard from yet? What if they feel stuck, scared to speak? Emma paused, considering the truth in her words. Every story shared was a step forward, but it also meant that unspoken stories lingered, unknown and unaddressed. A heavy weight loomed over the idea of those hidden struggles. What if we set up a way for people to share anonymously? Emma proposed, excitement bubbling again. Like a suggestion box, where anyone can voice their fears or concerns without revealing their identity. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, sparks of inspiration reigniting as people grabbed onto the notion. They envisioned a safe space, a community anchored in understanding rather than judgment. As the storm outside raged on, light flickered again, but the room remained illuminated by the commitment they had forged collectively. Emma glanced around, her heart swelling at the progress they had made together in such a short span of time. Then, just as she felt a burgeoning sense of hope, a loud crash echoed outside, and the power went out entirely, leaving them in darkness. Gasps filled the room, panic threatening to spiral as shadows danced on the walls. Emma inhaled deeply, closing her eyes for a brief moment. We're still here, she said, her voice steady. Let us keep talking, sharing by candlelight if we need to. Could they withstand the turbulence of the storm outside, alongside the storm of secrets within? Emma braced herself for what might be revealed in the depths of the dark. What would they uncover amongst their vulnerable truths, and would it pull them closer together or tear them apart? The sound of the storm swirled around them, magnifying the tension in the air as shadows enveloped the room. But instead of retreating into the fear that threatened to engulf them, Emma felt a shift. The darkness had spurred something deep, something courageous. Let us keep the conversation going, Emma repeated, her voice rising above the whispers of uncertainty. Who else has something they need to share, even if it's scary? A moment passed, heavy silence hanging like the shadows, until Richard boldly stepped forward. I'll go next, he said. The resolve in his voice steadied the others, drawing them in like moths to a flame. I haven't talked about this in years, but my dad passed away when I was a teenager. I thought I had to be the man of the house right after. I didn't grieve, just buried it all. His admission sent a ripple through the room. Emma's heart ached for him. She saw the vulnerability behind his bravado, the struggle that had left scars on his soul. I've always prided myself on being strong. But now, I'm realizing that I can't carry that weight without sharing it. Tears pooled in his eyes as he spoke. Mirroring his strength, others began to share, opening up with stories they thought they'd never reveal. One woman, Claire, confessed, "I'm afraid of being a burden. I've fought against anxiety so long, but I'm tired. I just want to be normal." As she spoke, another voice interrupted, a man named David. "Normal? What is that? We're all in this together. You're not alone, Claire. This group is proof of our shared humanity." At that moment, something beautiful blossomed. Emma felt the warmth of connection envelope them like a blanket. Their stories lit a pathway through the darkness, and her heart soared with the realization that their fears, once solitary weights, were now a collective experience. Suddenly, the door creaked, making everyone jump. "Who is there?" Maria called out. Maria's anxiety hung in the air until a figure emerged, a young man, soaked and shivering. "I saw your light and heard your voices through the storm. I didn't know if you'd let me in." Emma glanced at the group, seeing her own concern mirrored in their faces. "Of course, come in," she said, urged by an instinct to welcome the newcomer. As he stepped inside, they all caught a glimpse of what seemed like relief washed over him. "I was stuck outside in that storm. I lost my sister a month ago. I didn't want to be alone." A collective gasp filled the room once more, but this time it wasn't one of shock. It was of solidarity. "You're home now," Emma assured him, her voice gentle yet firm. "You can share as much or as little as you want." He nodded, visibly shaken, yet comforted by the acceptance that enveloped him like a warm hug. As the group settled back into their introspective space, Emma felt the connection grow tighter, an invisible thread binding them all. She wondered how many more stories remained in the dark corners of the room, waiting for their chance to be heard. "Why don't we light a candle in memory of those we've lost?" Claire suggested softly. "A small token of remembrance for our shared grief, and also a flame to symbolize our hope." As they gathered around, a sense of peace hung in the air. They didn't just share their stories. They had forged a community. With each flickering light they held together, something changed within Emma. But just when she thought they had found their rhythm, a loud crash came from outside, slapping reality back into focus. Emma's heart quickened. "What was that?" Someone whispered. As they all exchanged nervous looks, Emma felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her chest. What threatened to crash into their newfound connection? Would this storm shatter their fragile bond, or could they draw even closer together, standing firm against the unknown? In that moment, uncertainty loomed larger than ever. Emma took a deep breath, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The door trembled against the wall as the wind howled like a wild animal outside. Emma's instincts kicked in. "Stay calm, everyone," she said, her voice steady, though her heart raced. The flickering candlelight painted anxious shadows across their faces, reflecting the turmoil within. "Who is still out there?" David asked, his brow furrowed, scanning the entrance. "The storm is intensifying, but so is something inside us." "Maybe it's just the wind," Maria offered, half-heartedly. Though her words were meant to reassure, her trembling hands betrayed her. Another crash echoed, louder this time, and the group jumped. Richard took a step back, his earlier resolve wavering. What if someone needs help?" Emma felt a surge of bravery from his words. "You're right. We can't let fear stop us. Let us check it out together." She stood up, instinctively reaching for the nearest candle, feeling its warmth against her palm. With hesitance, the others stood too, a mix of trepidation and determination surfacing in their expressions. "If we're going to do this, let us do it as one," Claire said, determination shining through her fear. They formed a tight circle, the candle lighting their faces as they moved towards the door. Each step felt heavier, like they were carrying the weight of every story shared that night. Emma grasped the doorknob, swallowing hard. "On the count of 3, she said, trying to imbue confidence into her shaky voice. 1, 2, 3. She threw the door open, revealing a blast of wind and rain that whipped through the room. In the gust, they could hardly see past the chaos. But something caught him as a figure hunched over under a tree in the yard, just outside the house, drenched and gasping for air. "Help, please," the newcomer cried, his voice cracking. Without a second thought, Emma dashed out into the tempest with the others right behind her, the warmth of their earlier connection urging them forward. As they neared the figure, she realized it was a young woman, arms wrapped protectively around her knees, shivering but desperately gesturing for assistance. "Are you okay?" Richard shouted over the howling storm. "What happened?" "I was trying to find shelter. I thought I could crawl beneath the tree, but it just made it worse." Her voice was barely audible, lost in the raging wind. Emma felt a rush of empathy, the memories of her own fears propelling her closer. "Come with us. We have a safe space inside," she called, offering her hand. The woman hesitated, looking nervously towards the raging elements. But there was an undeniable spark of hope in Emma's gaze, an unspoken promise of safety. She reached out, clasping Emma's hand tightly. Once inside, they all huddled around the flickering candlelight, breathing heavily but united. The newcomer, visibly shaken but grateful, looked around the room with astonished eyes. "I didn't know if I'd find anyone out here. I thought I was alone." "No one is truly alone," David murmured, his steady gaze meeting hers. "Not anymore." The warmth of their shared experiences vibrated through the space. Emma could feel it. Another layer of connection had formed, stretching between them like a bridge over troubled waters as they began to interact with the new woman, sharing smiles and soft words of encouragement. The storm outside raged on, but the noise began to dim, drowned out by the rising spirits within the room. Just when they thought they had settled into a new normal, a different sound came, an unmistakable thud from the other side of the room. It sounded almost like a child's laughter. Emma turned to the group, her heart pounding again. "Do you hear that? What could it be?" The atmosphere shifted once more, a mix of curiosity and apprehension swirling among them. Emma looked at each face and saw the same question mirrored. What awaited them now in this storm of uncertainty? The laughter echoed again, bright and innocent, slicing through the weight of the storm and their collective anxieties. Emma turned toward the sound, eyes wide, searching for its source. That a small figure peeked from behind the curtain, eyes gleaming with wonder. It was Lily. Emma felt a rush of joy flood her chest, a warmth spreading through her as she beckoned her daughter forward. "Lily, how did you get here?" "I ran," she said, her cheeks flushed from the cold, but a radiant smile illuminating her face. "I wanted to find you, Mommy." Relief washed over Emma, blending with the bubbling laughter that filled the room. She instinctively crouched down to embrace Lily, holding her tightly as tears pricked her eyes. "You're safe now, sweetheart," she whispered, overwhelmed with gratitude. The room shifted as all eyes landed on Lily, a symbol of hope and innocence. Emma could see more than recognition in their gazes. It was a sense of shared connection, a reminder of what they were all fighting for. The newcomer, still shivering, smiled for the first time, drawn to the beautiful scene unfolding. "Is this your little girl?" she asked softly. "She is," Emma replied, her heart swelling. "And she reminds me that we can always find joy even in the darkest storms." Lily looked around the room, innocent curiosity shining through. "What is happening? Why are we all here?" Emma took a deep breath, sensing the gravity of the moment. "We're sharing our stories, Lily, about our struggles and how we can help one another." She paused, considering the depth behind her daughter's young heart, and about how we're never really alone. "Can I help, too?" Lily asked, her eyes twinkling as she extended a tiny hand to her mother. "Yes," exclaimed Richard, kneeling down. "You can be our light, just like you are for your mom. Just your smile can brighten these heavy hearts." As the room filled with shifting rhythms of laughter and emotion, they all felt that the possibilities to uplift one another had never been clearer. They were learning with every shared word, every crossed threshold that led to deeper understanding. Another crash of thunder outside startled them, but it hardly had any effect on Emma's newfound resolve. "Let us turn our pain into power," she told everyone. "From this moment on, we forge a community that stands strong through storms." The man who had momentarily questioned her nodded, his skepticism softening. "Together we can create real change. We can be the lanterns that guide each other through hard times." The revelation sparked something electric in the room. They began to share more than just their struggles. Ideas flowed like a stream, brainstorming further on not just the garden or training programs, but ways to uplift their community as a whole. A flicker of hope transformed into determination as Emma led the charge. "We can set up a weekly meeting to check in with each other," share burdens, and celebrate victories together. Bring in stories that remind us why our fight matters. Count me in, shouted Maria, her voice laced with enthusiasm. Every voice around the circle rallied behind the plan. They envisioned these meetings filled with laughter, support, shared meals, and collaboration, a safety net woven with compassion, where no one would feel isolated or unheard. The laughter continued to thrive as the storm raged outside, drowned out by the powerful symphony of community building. Suddenly, a knock jolted the group. This time, it felt different. A tangible anticipation filled the air. Emma held her breath. What if it was another person seeking solace, needing a safe harbor in the storm? Together? She asked, looking around the circle, excitement mingling with a hint of fear. Together, they echoed, hands connecting, hearts racing. She turned the doorknob slowly, pushing the door open to reveal yet another figure, this time. A woman with wild eyes, soaked and desperate. I heard you all. I heard laughter, and I thought maybe I'm not too late. Emma felt her heart expand. You're right on time, she said, her voice unshakable. Welcome home. In that moment, wrapped in the threads of shared stories, they realized they were no longer just individuals hidden behind their own burdens. They were a tapestry of resilience, bound together, ready to rise above any challenge, not just for themselves, but for each other. As lightning flickered outside, illuminating their united front, Emma knew the real work was only just beginning. But today, standing in their candlelit sanctuary, she could see the future stretching ahead, full of light, laughter, and voices united. They would grow, together, stronger than any storm. And just like that, the laughter continued to fill the room, turning storms into stories that only reminded them of the power they held in their hands. Now is the moment to connect, to support one another. If you've been inspired by this journey, subscribe immediately to the channel for more amazing stories. Don't hesitate, hit that like button now to help fuel the algorithm. I want to hear your reactions and feelings about this ending. So leave your comment below. Share this story, without waiting another second, with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.